operations have always been a contact sport, not something you can do completely remote. So I had this like fancy title on global talent, manufacturing trends, and digital transformation. And by the time I finished reading it, I kind of fell asleep. So I thought it's kind of boring. So I don't want to talk to you about that. Also, I don't feel I can necessarily say a lot of things about Thailand manufacturing. I'm actually here to learn. Okay, but what I can share with you is what we're doing with Tulip, and I want to talk about through this conversation about two most important concepts, okay, for me at least. One is a little bit morbid, but please don't get depressed. I'll try and keep you guys awake. Is the death of Industry 4.0, so kind of a term that is quickly becoming irrelevant. So that's one thing we'll talk about. The second thing is that digital transformation is meaningless, you know? And these two terms are kind of go together. And instead, I want to talk about how we change how companies work. And so bear with me on those two themes. The first thing I can tell you is like why APAC is critical. Not just for Tulip, we can talk about Tulip, but for the world. The past 3 decades or so, if you're on this planet, you know that Asia Pacific has become, in fact, the hub of the most cutting-edge manufacturing technologies, the most factories being built, the most technology being shipped out, our iPhones, robots, cars, everything. It's not to say that US, Europe, and other great countries have amazing manufacturing. In fact, they do. But many, many multinational companies have moved to APAC. And when you build the factories and scale them, where does the knowledge accumulate? It accumulates at the hands and the brains of the people who do the work, their partners, their supply chain, and so on. For Tulip, you know, APAC has been always on our mind, but I think we have like a bit of a different approach because many companies come to Europe, come to APAC for 2 reasons. One reason is they want more. Okay, what do they want more? They want more market access, market share, and they want to pay less. That is kind of a very typical arrogant West approach to what's happening in APAC. But APAC, you know, 33% of the global manufacturing output, its own huge organic market. You cannot have this approach, especially not if you're Tulip. Tulip wants to change the industrial software landscape, and to do that, we have to think about Asia Pacific, and within it, the countries of Asia, and within it, Thailand, as core strategic areas that we operate in. We are right now built our headquarters in Singapore, and we have a company in China, so we operate right on the China cloud with Azure and AWS. And we are setting up our operation in Japan, and this is part of our global network. Of course, we're in EMEA and US. And I think this, when I kind of introduce Tulip, I always talk about this, is when we want to build a platform that addresses the key issues that we all know in operations, even under your same roof. And whether you're a system integrator or you are a manufacturer, you know that even your production lines are unique and you know, they're dynamic, they're not static, they change all the time. Production lines are like, you know, creatures. They have life cycle, they live and die, and you need to build them again. And this is why applying technology is sometimes like pouring concrete on the floor and sticking your foot inside. And that is very hard to remain agile in that sense. And this is especially true if you look at the numbers or where automation kind of and of course, we cannot imagine the world without automation, and I'm not against automation, to be clear. But automation alone is insufficient. Why? Because in industries that have humans as concrete part of what they do, the humans will be the source of your variability. Humans have good days and bad days, more training or less training, and the cost of failures that is caused by humans sometimes offset the automation. And by the way, some things, if you have short run, complex build to order, customized orders, you just cannot automate. It's not, the bang is not worth the buck. So, you know, what do you do? And then you ask ChatGPT, like, how are we doing? And this is like where, you know, the industry 4.0 need to go die. And it's like, you get this beautiful, amazing image of all the machines are connected, the robots are doing all the things, and screens are pushing out data, and we all know that that's not the case. Even after a decade of Industry 4.0, okay? It's not the case because a lot of the work that has been done was trying to solve this mostly top-down, and not in a combined bottom-up and top-down fashion that takes the human into account. And this led to some of the picture you see here. So a lot of manual process, legacy software, silos, and so on. And then a lot of meetings that in my head look like this. So what do you see in this meeting? This big dog is the CEO. You come to the factory with the CFO. Who is here from a multinational company? Just curious. So there's a few people from multinationals. And these big dogs are kind of staring down all these little dogs. And these are like the corporate directors from IT and OT. They're trying to behave in the visit, not to fight. And operations people are like staring at each other like, just let us do the work, We know what to do. Just let us do the work. So I don't know. I mean, I'm a dog person. I relate to this, but I'm sometimes the little mouse, like running around, like with these meetings and trying to help these dogs not kill each other. You got to solve this problem for your companies. It doesn't matter if you're the operation dogs, IT, OT, or CFO, yeah, OCO. And you have a choice. The choice is like what kind of architecture you choose and whether you choose it based on, and again, following AWS here is great, I don't think we need to discuss why cloud is important. If your server room, if you have one still, doesn't look like this, it will pretty soon. It's like it start, decomposing. And this is sort of what we use to introduce this idea of composable architectures. And it's not to say that you're not going to have some on-prem stuff in your operation, but the architecture that drives your enterprise, not necessarily in manufacturing, logistics, and so on, where non-frontline work is happening, is already on the cloud. So whether IT admits it or not, or OT is ready or not, this is already reality. People who are not going to do that, companies who are not going to do that, not going to remain competitive. And when we talk about transformation, for us, transformation looks like something different. So we don't think that overnight you press a button and you change this environment to full cloud, amazing software that is running, and the bliss of internet is bestowed on operations. Actually, transformations are hard. This chart, and I have this chart for almost every customer that Tulip ever had, and most of our customers are multi-site, complex, multinationals. You see the gradual change, but also you see sort of a very clear speed. And so, and those phases we call initial scale transform is very different than, the whiz-bang consultant that comes in and says, hey, this is what we're going to do, or the very boring RFP for your MES or your MOM that only takes 18 months to finish to get the first 3 screens, right? There's a different way, and that's what I want to discuss. So you can ask, well, what do you do instead of decompose? Well, you compose not necessarily selections of software and interfaces. You need to build new production systems. Your job is to build production systems. Production system in the lean sense is the set of methodologies and tools that allow a company to move value to the customer, reduce the waste based on data and so on with all the tools and nothing changed in the 40 years that we have been doing lean production. Nothing changed, except, okay, we have a bit more technology to connect, to store data, to do AI, and so on. And we'll have no technology, it's coming, you heard Steve must talk about AI, Mason here will talk about AI in a second, but production systems will stay. And so companies who do not think in the sense of production system will not be ready for the next technology wave. So why is that critical? And again, we are going to switch to a little demo here because we like to talk, but we also like to show stuff. Composability is a choice, We think about production system or composable production system through, and this is more in particular is for discrete manufacturing. So I don't have a factory in my pocket, but I can take you to this virtual manufacturing here, so high virtual manufacturing, but for a virtual factory, this production system has classic stuff like how you manage your inventory. Let's take a look at production management for a second. If you click on say order execution, you'll see what this factory is making this very classic discrete operation of pneumatic actuators. So you have to put it together, you have to have the right torquing for the screws, you have to test it. Of course, it's built out of like some ERP content that is coming, and you need to make sure you transact properly with all the things. Maybe you want to go to a different application, so these apps kind of live in the various elements of said production system, but the reality is that the process exists in between those components. And here you can see how the apps kind of share the information and talk through each other through what we call the common data model that allows you to bridge the gap. And this is, a lot of other buzzwords live in that space. People talk a lot about the IoT or digital twin or UNS and all these kind of things. But the reality is that if your infrastructure allows you to talk to the system, sensors, machines at the edge on this set of protocols, and there's a lot of great demos I just saw here today, we're already living this reality. The question is like, how do you activate the organization after that? And what is the answer? Again, back to production system. Who builds those apps? The engineers. The engineers, that could be your process, lean, safety, your industrial engineers. What do those people have? And it doesn't matter whether you make a drug or you make a luxury good or you make a industrial machine. They have domain expertise of what they're making. They're very good at it, and they think logically, and they are able to solve problems, and they're able to train the people, but they're typically not software people. And if their dependence to create software that drives your operation is just based on how many IT resources you have, or is there agreement between the COO and CIO on which platform to work, then already it's too slow for operations. Operation moves at the speed of how do you take the data, process it into something that changes the reality for the organization. So this is discrete manufacturing, but production systems span, and this is part of building a platform, and that's what we like at Tulip. So if we look at this, and let's go to a different factory. So this is, for example, if we go to the whole process, this is a classic oral solid dose manufacturing. Anyone here in CPG or pharmaceuticals? Not really, okay. But these type of factories are batch process, so they have different type of machinery and different type of automation and different type of processes that they need to do. For example, if you're making a drug, you need to do a weigh and dispense operation. So let's jump to that one. To go, and in this case, you need to connect to a scale, you need to reconcile, you need to record all the data, and this data might need to live later in a historian, because this is a regulated industry that you have to produce evidence for production. This has been extremely difficult to design, validate, and revalidate through product cycles when previously built with traditional approaches, whether it's paper or classical MES. But now we're doing it in a composable fashion. So what does that allow you? It allows you to get to go lives and the ability to produce safe pharmaceutical products faster. If we go back, Mason, one slide. Yep, and we put it all together. So great. So what makes this work? What makes this work is community and people who build apps. So of course we do it and our partners do it. And if you think about it from the lens of open source, any engineer that you can imagine, electrical, mechanical, software for sure, no one starts project from blank. Everybody goes to the internet and finds the right open source to start, right? Where is that for operation? Why can't operation people see what other operations people do and learn and share and so on? That's part of the vision, and I think we're just starting, and that's what you see in our application library. The other thing is that it applies to how quickly you can adopt the technology. So this is a quick little video that shows how in few clicks you can have a connector to Snowflake. And Snowflake is just like one of hundreds of applications that we would support, but you know why? Because You cannot take the smartest people in the room and say, my software is going to be finite and it's going to talk to only these things or those things while the world is very, very diverse. And by the way, in the world of B2B software for IT, this has been the standard for like at least 15, 20 years when this, big platforms like Salesforce are coming to prominence. Where is that for operations? So we need this for operations. And again, kind of one of the reasons I'm here is to talk about ecosystem and how is that changing, so to speak, the definition of what practical Industry 4.0 is that it's not a one company game. It's a multiple company game. I just met the folks from Banner, who's one of our partners globally. And guess what? Banner is selling here their product, you know, and we are selling here the software. So this notion that technology needs to be siloed and geographically, and like the software for Thailand will be developed in Thailand and so on, that's out the door. You know, the world has fundamentally changed, and now it's imperative that you use that. And the question is, what's the architecture? And this, you know, our partnership, strategic partnership with AWS has been amazing. And like this slide, you know, I took, I think, in Hannover Messe last year, where you started seeing these kind of funny things, like for Germany, right? You know, we're talking about countries. So in Germany, it's just like today, WTF is tomorrow wow, or have a beer with an engineer, so a bit more loose. So kind of bringing software into the game. And then you start seeing standard architecture, blueprints. So we're already there. We're already in a place where you can take advantage of what is out there and like make use and move fast. And doesn't matter, your operation is no longer in the back of the bus from technology perspective. And we're doing this with many partners, and you can see different elements of this. So this could be real-time location systems with zero key, or quality gates with Cognex, or coordinate measurement for inspections with Hexagon. And it's kind of cool to see all those things coming. And where are they coming from? They're coming because our customers are saying, this is what we need. We need to solve this problem, because otherwise we're not solving this quality issue to get the approval to go to market, or we're not gonna go fast enough without this material gate on shipping because our throughput is not high enough. And you know what that is? That is solving problems. That is not choosing some software to tick a box for some project. Sorry, why is this not going forward? Here's another example, and I just want to explain, like, these are more traditional industrial type of thing, like real indoor location, or you know, machine vision to do material tracking and stuff like that. But why Snowflake is all of a sudden here? And we've been working both with AWS together with Snowflake. And the reason is, like, this approach is changing very traditional pieces of this industrial software stack, like historians. You know, if you saw the funny picture on the server room, no one should install a historian on-prem with a lot of air conditions and RAID 6 and whatnot, when you can use Snowflake, and you can pipe information in and out through Tulip and other tools directly, and move that workload and have you know, all the multimodal AI that needs to run on this data on the cloud. And if we're not making it easy to do that, to take the information from the last sensor on the floor all the way up and back, then we're not doing our jobs, and it's already something we can do, and it's possible. So, and the result is that the industrial stack is now simplified, because, you know, there's one less special software that does X, in this case, the historian. So standard big platforms are coming and are ready to support operations. And so far we talked about really the MES landscape and its adjacencies, but like, let's see how this progresses to HMI, to the, you know, human machine interface, which I always find very funny, because the word human and interface are kind of like, usually the interfaces for machines are not so great. And the story I want to tell you is, this is, you know, we've partnered with DMG Mori, which is a large scale, one of the largest CNC machine manufacturers on the planet. So they make 5X machine and lathe and things like that, including automation. And the challenge, we thought, you know, then they have this like control panel that drives the CNC. And this CNC machine could be hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes 1 million, fairly complex. You can potentially like hurt someone if you're not doing your job well here, or cause a lot of damage to the machine. And yet, the question was like, how do you turn the use of this machine more to an iPhone? And so, composability in HMI means that you can combine no-code, low-code workflows alongside the operating system of the machine, make it non-static. So this is one example of where composability and HMI kind of come together. And you can also see it in work we've done with Rockwell. This is Rockwell Optics and Tulip demonstrating building a very simple bioreactor, but the idea is the same, is that even your machine needs to be composable and need to have a notion of a process. The final example here is that this is work we shared in October with Sartorius, and you can see a bioreactor that now is born with an EBR. It's a product coming out called BioBrain. And I predict that we will see more and more of this composability coming in. So I think those trends are important. This is the last one, and again, this is with Hexagon doing some quality measurement and computer vision with AWS, reading what critical measurement need to be on the paper and then confirming it with an ARM. So all this sort of industrial Lego bricking is already possible here and now, and you can do. And so I want to come back to the end. And so like, why we should stop talking about Industry 4.0? Well, first of all, because it's here. So if it's here, we don't need to like have some aspirational thing that we're all expecting. We just need to go and do it. The question is like, do you have the tools or you don't? It's kind of a binary thing. In what architecture you're doing it. And I argue that what I showed you today is like already, certainly we're not done, but we're certainly on the way to have all the pieces to start building. And like we need this community to work together to put in this library more and more of the integration devices, drivers, that will make your life easier and therefore move faster and make this term completely obsolete, and then we don't need to talk about it anymore. And then the last thing I'd say is like, why is digital transformation meaningless? It's like really simple. Do you all familiar with transformation that is non-digital? Everything is digital in the world we live in, so it's redundant. So we should stop talking about it. So that's point number one. And then the second one, are you all familiar with transformation that is never over? That is over at some point and done? It's never over. There's always the next thing you need to do. It's the point of continuous improvement in lean. So I don't want to coin a new buzzword, and please don't quote me on that because I'm not quoting another buzzword, but I think we live in a world of continuous transformation. And again, back to this guy. If folks do you all know who this guy is? It's Teiichi Ono. He's the guy who very famous for catalyzing the Toyota production system. And he said something very profound. Okay, he said that he wanted people to come to Toyota to think, not to work, because there's no limit to their creativity. And I think what if this guy with his thinking and the first principle he laid out, and then the entire world kind of adopted over the past 40, 50 years, if he had the tools that we have today, what would production system look like? That's what we're trying to build, and this is sort of captured in the shameless plug to the book, a little bit dense and boring, we wrote, called Augmented Lean, that builds on this principle. And the thing I'll leave you with is like, take care of the people, make sure it's human-centric, and you will end up with these new production systems. Thank you very much.